Alright, I will say answer now. I say more aqua baby wanna pay Emraj Median so Ebrason you have a bon komo kakra na komo na ebe no efa global food banking aduane aduane de bia udidi a na ebika or say udisi but oba Ghana it's like say after say when you be edi no they are kind of on check it the echina obedi no tomorrow no we don't think about it. So we have global food banking womo store aduane for future use. Now face womo boase na be ya womo so omunya aduane eni no womenya biedi na womo tu komo ase na womo di djuma kase pa ewo Africa, whole of Africa, Ghana na im say you host that djuma di ni tia na pay penifo no ofia he no womo bon komo tiawa na afa ye ja womo activities aka no so no womo tumi akwoto aso nti komo no ye de be frefra. Yes, because we have Madam Lisa Moon, yeah, one of the president and our chief executive officer at the Global Food Banking Network. Obroni uzi guys want to mean can be bring to Canada. Na yenso yemu kwa be first why beka ya the na chief okay chef Elijah Amo Ado, executive director the Food for All Africa. E wo fi ha mene wo mo ebedi enkomo. Good morning.
Good morning.
Madam Lisa, I hope you are doing well.
Yes, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you too for coming. Hope you are enjoying Ghana.
Yes, I am indeed.
What have you seen so far in Ghana?
So far in Ghana, I had the opportunity to spend a little bit of time here in Accra and also take a look at the amazing operation that Food for All Africa has as well. And unfortunately, my trip here is too short, but it's been terrific to be here and learn a little bit more about the tremendous work that Elijah and his colleagues are doing to address food insecurity.
All right, that's great. That's great. I hope you are enjoying everything.
Yes, indeed.
So far, especially.
I'm sorry?
I said hope you are enjoying everything you've seen so far in Ghana.
Absolutely, absolutely. My next trip I'll have to see more of the country.
Okay,
so.
That's great. That's great. Have you been to Kumasi and other regional only in Accra?
I have been to Kumasi on a previous trip and also in the north to Tamale, and the whole country is just beautiful.
All right, you have to go to Central Region too.
Oh, really? I will. I must.
Is that right? That place you will get more food, so you have to be there too.
It's very important to make sure we're eating enough.
Chef, good morning.
Morning.
Hope you are doing great.
God's grace.
And then say, what Ghana kakrenti no ebe kebia for biasa.
Sure, definitely. I mean, Mecca. Namafra, so that my colleague Lisa can also get to understand the conversation.
That's very good. All right, let me start with Madam Lisa, because she's the president of the organization. Madam Lisa, can you please tell us something small about Food for Africa or Global Food Banking?
Yes, so the first thing, of course, that I just want to share a little bit about is what is food banking. I, for one, was very confused when I first started hearing about it, because you hear the word bank and you think about the fact that, oh, this must involve money in some way. But food banking is a really interesting kind of concept that's now being carried out in more than 70 countries. And it really takes advantage of the fact that we as a world produce quite a lot of food. But in spite of that, of course, we have many people that are facing hunger and food insecurity. And that's really due in large part to a logistics issue. As a community, we are throwing away or discarding or losing about a third of all food that is produced. And food banking is a model that looks to take that nutritious surplus food and connect it to people in need, but do so at the community level. So at the Global Food Banking Network, we are supporting organizations like Food for All Africa, which is the food bank here in Ghana, but in more than 50 countries around the world.
More than 50 countries?
Yes, and more than a dozen countries here in Africa.
Okay, so what's the main aim and mission of this organization?
Our mission is absolutely to improve food access and to alleviate hunger while addressing the problem of food loss and waste.
All right, that's very good. Stando, why do you mobilize food? Let's come to Ghana, for instance.
Sure. So when you look at the food supply chain, from the farm to the homes, where food passes through, there are stages that food passes through. And most often, inefficiencies your food supply chain. And these inefficiencies most often creates a system where some food are not able to end up on the table. And most of this food that are not able to end up on the table doesn't mean they are not consumable. Let me give you a typical example. This water on your table is produced in a manufacturing company. and they use machines to produce the water. At the end of the day, the machine is calibrated to fill the bottle to a certain mark.
Yeah.
If it fills lower or more than the calibrated mark that the bottle is supposed to be filled, at the end of the production chain, those ones that don't meet the mark will be taken off. It will not go to the market. What happens to that? Have you asked yourself? The company most often has to throw it away. So we have companies in the manufacturing sector having to throw away a lot of food products that basically it wasn't about the quality or it was more about meeting a certain standard, and it didn't meet that standard maybe by yes. And when that happens, for a company that is producing, they always budget for wastage. And at the end of the day, you, the final consumer, you are paying for it by when you purchase their product.
Yeah.
But then they have to throw that away because they don't want it to get onto the market. Then customers will start saying, when there is always variation in the level of water that is put into the bottle. So for us as food banks, that's where we come in on behalf of the low income, the vulnerable, those that don't have the purchasing power. We have the investment to meet logistics and what it will need to then take that food from the manufacturer, from any sector of the food supply chain,
including farmers,
including farms,
Yes.
and then make sure that those with no or low purchasing power can at least have access to food, because the right to food is very important. So that's how we get food.
Okay, but someone may ask, since at this stage, they are not sale, but they still store it.
It's not. That's why I give a typical example
Okay.
that the water is not spot.
Okay.
The product, you see. And then as well, offer, for instance, your fresh fruits and vegetables.
Okay.
Oko your stores and now market say okoto by here. You, in your mind, you've always have it that yam comes in certain sizes and then certain weight. So you as a consumer, having that mindset, when you go and you see a yam that is slightly bigger or slightly lower than the size you would say you won't buy it, right? But not that is sport, you see, and it's happening. That's why in Ghana,
I say black spot and other things, so I will not pick it.
Yeah. In Ghana, we're losing 45% of food along our food supply chain is wasted.
Wow, 45%.
Yes, and it's at a time when we have a lot of vulnerable people in our society. From the last Ghana statistics report on living standard report that we had in 2022, over 50% of Ghanaians are food insecure.
Wow.
And you know how the prices of food keep going
It's
up.
very high. All right. Madam Lisa, let me ask you this question. What do you think are the causes of food wastage in Africa?
I think that obviously what Elijah was just mentioning, I think is true across the continent and not just unique to sub-Saharan Africa, but also in many parts of the world. You have losses happening on the farm, you have losses happening post-harvest because of infrastructure and transportation issues. And then obviously as you move through the supply chain, once you get down to the retail and the consumer levels, you just have a significant amount of wastage occurring because people want their food to look a certain way or they over-purchase and then it's discarded. And so I think there's opportunities to recover or rescue this nutritious surplus food at various parts of the supply chain.
Lack of storage facilities is also a factor.
Yes.
It's also a factor.
Yes, absolutely.
So how can we improve this?
The infrastructure in general. So I think that these are big questions, of course, that governments and businesses are really grappling with. And then I think as we think about food systems in general, there needs to be significant investment in, you know, reducing on-farm losses, investment in infrastructure and storage at the post-harvest level across the board. And we need to do that so that farmers that are putting all of this work into growing this food, they can do so and they can sell it at a good price, of course, and improve their lives and livelihoods for their families and the like. I also think, too, that technology can play a really important role in terms of identifying where is there surplus and then how can we move that much more quickly. I think in the case of food banks, right, we can, you know, identify different parts of the supply chain where you can be using transportation infrastructure to pick up that surplus and then redistribute it to people in need in a much more timely way.
All right, that's great. Mr. Ado, Food for Africa, what is it about? Is it also something different or the same as the global food banking?
Well, so the Global Food Banking Network is the bigger organization encouraging and supporting food banks to thrive across the world. For us
at Africa, do we have food banks? Let me ask this question.
Thank you. Yes, so food banking has been globally, food banking has been ongoing since the 50s, and most especially in the Americas, the Europes, and the developed world.
Okay.
When you look at food banking on the continent of Africa, it took more prominence from 2006 when Egypt started one of the first food banks on the continent.
And Joseph time. I'm
talking
about Joseph era.
Yeah. Then as well, you also have South Africa in 2009 also starting a food bank.
Okay.
The issue of West Africa.
So South Africa is also having a food bank.
Yes.
Okay.
The issue of West Africa, as far back as 2015, Food for All, and we know other community organizations that were seeing to connecting food to vulnerable people, but never understood it as food banking until we got in touch through the Global Food Banking Network. Then we got to understand that the work we do is actually food banking, but it can be done in a professional way. There are certain standards, there are certain procedures, there are certain policies that to run a food bank you will need in place. And looking back from 2015 when we started West Africa's first and largest food bank, it's been an amazing journey through our partnership with the Global Food Banking Network. It's not just having access to funding, but most importantly having access to the knowledge and know-how, the growing standards and trends of food banking as is done elsewhere, to ensure that, and it's not until we joined the accelerator program that the Global Food Banking Network runs. Then we got to understand that to feed vulnerable people, to rescue food that would have gone wasted, we will be able to do it professionally if we follow their standard. And since then we've also have pockets of food banks. The same time we have today, Nigeria has a food bank, Lagos Food Bank, and there is some in the Hub North. There are other countries.
The state
so
is
current,
no,
it's all NGO led.
Okay.
In some countries, there are strong partnerships between the food banks and then government and then the private sector. For the food banks, we serve as the vehicle, as the medium through which the transaction of where food is and then where the vulnerable people are to get the food. Today, as we speak, on the continent of Africa, we have almost 15, 16 food banks, and thanks to Global Food Banking Network. And it's part of the reason why we are in Ghana today, to look more at how to improve and then increase the prospects of food banking. Because if you listen to media, most importantly, you will know that Africa needs more food bank than the developed world.
So your main targets are the vulnerables. They are your main targets.
Yes, but we have various programs and activities. And most often, when you talk about food banks, people find it easy to think you are handing out food to people so they will become lazy. But you look at the various programs that we use this food to achieve. For instance, in Food for All Africa, we have a lunchbox school feeding program, which is the largest private sector-led school feeding currently in Ghana, with over 4,000 school children getting access to at least 1 meal per day in 25 schools across 5 regions.
Every day.
Every day. How do we do it? I wouldn't compare to government school feeding, but we make sure that our basics, like school kitchen, like having some of the mothers serve as caterers in providing the food for Nkolano. We put all these structures in place, and then we work with private sector to ensure, say, they can have that important meal to ensure. And most of the schools we actually have as beneficiary schools are government schools in communities that are hard to reach. We work with the district school education offices. So most of the food we get through recovery.
So which region are you operating in?
Ashanti.
Ashanti region.
We have Eastern
region.
Greater Accra, Volta, and then Central region. Central around the Agona
area.
Yes. Then as well, we have a mother and infant nutrition program. Most of our mothers, from when the children get from 1 year to about 5 years, the economic situation and all that affects the nutrition of their children, and they go for weighing clinics, and all that the nurse can do to help is to advise the mother on the kind of food they should give the children. But economically, is this parent or mother in a situation to adhere to improving the child's nutrition? In some cases, you even see the mothers, and you will see that they even need nutritional support. So for instance, Food for All, we have a program called the Mother and Infant Nutrition Improvement Program, where we get recommendation of such mothers from the various CHIPS compound and the various health facilities. And then we put them on a 6-month education and then feeding program, where for each month, twice in a month, they come, we give them food, free food, education. Even sometimes we give them, the children, formulated food that has been approved by the Ghana Health Service, to ensure that within that period, the weight, the health of the child is. So for being a food bank, it's not just handing out food, but as well, we are
programs that can help.
Yes, and affecting education, affecting health, affecting every stage of and most importantly, we reduce climate change, the effects of climate change. Because imagine a food that is wasted. It forms methane gas. The odor you hear is called methane gas. And methane gas is 3 times more dangerous than the carbon dioxide that humans are releasing into the air. So when you recover food, it's not just the food you have recovered. The effects of that food has a social, financial benefits. And for us, thanks to Global Food Banking Network, we feel proud of what we do.
That's good. So the Food for All African this year is going on in Ghana.
The Africa Food Banking Conference. So maybe Lisa will tell more about.
Okay, Madam Lisa. So what is it about the African Food Conference?
Yes. So as Elijah was mentioning, the Global Food Banking Network, we support organizations like Elijah's around the world, and in Africa. Today, we are very fortunate to partner with food banks in more than a dozen countries. And so once a year, we gather those organizations together. They can share experiences, best practices, and really kind of learn from each other. And this year, we're very fortunate to be able to host it here in Accra with Food for All Africa. And like I said, today, right now, we have food banking organizations from 13 countries on the continent being together for the whole week to talk about kind of how we can reduce food loss and waste on the continent, as well as increase food access.
Okay, so it's not that they are not going to share free foods.
Not here, but we definitely are making sure that we are food secure during the conference. So
that's going to be. I thought maybe they are going to give free food. So.
Well, for us as an organization in Food for All Africa, it's an getting food to vulnerable people through our various programs. We have a hot meals program. It's an everyday thing. So whilst the team is here from the 13 African countries and then Global Food Banking Network, they will have opportunity to also go on some of our programs. So for instance, tomorrow we're going to some of the farms.
Okay, so it is not a day program.
No, it's a whole week program.
Then let's see the activities outlined for the
And so we tomorrow, for instance, we're going on the field to follow how we get the food. So we'll be on the farms to recover some of the agricultural recovery products that we have. Food for All has.
Do you have a farm, your own farm?
We have an agricultural recovery warehouse.
Okay.
Our focus is to reduce what is going waste along the supply chain.
Okay.
And so key for us currently, we have a dedicated warehouse and infrastructure support to enable us recover things like fresh fruits like watermelon, bananas, tomatoes from farmers and then give it to our beneficiaries. So the team would also be visiting our agricultural recovery warehouse. Every Wednesday we actually do hot meals program around Accra. We have mobile kitchen vans. We've done we always do under the Nima overhead. We do Independence Square, Hashiaman, so we have dedicated
free foods.
Yes, and it's everywhere you can go on Wednesdays and then Fridays. We do that. Medina, yes. So whilst we're here, the team will also join and then visit some of our beneficiaries as well. We have a program where we recover food from markets. You know, most often market women don't have proper storage facilities. In the rural areas, because we have a warehouse in Ashanti region around Ofinsu, we visit those rural markets and then all products that is rejected by the market queens who source, they give to us. And then we use it through our program. So whilst the team is here, they will also be visiting the Ashama market to assess the challenges that market women have to go through and how we are able to create a partnership with them to recover what goes waste and then use it to feed the vulnerable.
So the program starts tomorrow?
It started actually yesterday. Yes, but tomorrow is more of our field programs.
Can anybody join this organization, or you have to be on a certain qualification process?
Yes, so we welcome organizations that are really looking at both reducing food loss and waste and increasing food access for people facing hunger. And if an organization is interested in being part of the Global Food Banking Network, they reach out to us. So we entirely kind of wait for organizations and people to reach out and request to be part of our network. And then our team will go through kind of a dialogue and assessment phase with the organization to really understand the mission, the purpose, the work they're doing in their communities. Most importantly, how can we provide support? And then yes, assuming all of that is in line, they join then a community of organizations, again, that today is spanning 50 countries. And I think that the food banking activity occurring here in sub-Saharan Africa is so exciting. I feel like the work that Elijah and Food for All Africa is doing and so many other organizations based on the continent is so innovative. I mean, and I feel like in just solving many challenges in really creative ways. And what we are seeing is that our partners in Southeast Asia, in India, in Latin America, are learning from what food banks in sub-Saharan Africa are doing. And that's really the purpose that we provide, right, is how can we be connected to other organizations so we can really tackle hunger faster, more effectively, and more efficiently.
And do you think improving this can help alleviate hunger from African continent totally?
I think it can improve food access, and I do think that a key solution that Food Bank offers is how do we get the most out of the food that we are currently producing. I mean, you all know so well the impact of climate change that is just being very devastating to farmers across the world, especially here in sub-Saharan Africa. And so with how much work is going into producing food, it is so important that we make sure that the food that is produced, it is getting to people. And that is one way that food banking is part of the broader food system, is really capturing that surplus and making sure it can get to people in need. I think a lot of what Elijah was talking about too, in terms of the ways that food banks support smaller social service organizations. These organizations are providing job training, livelihood development, education, child care a lot of times for working parents, and those organizations are able to devote more resources to doing what they do best, which is their core mission, because a food bank steps in and provides food at a discounted cost. And so those are ways that I think that food banks can be part of kind of advancing social progress. Is it the absolute solution to addressing hunger and food insecurity in Africa? Of course not. But it is one key part of the food system that makes sure that we are getting the most out of the food that is being grown.
That's very good. Global food banking for na 18 komo na say komo na yedi no we have pictures na who be say wo mo ayi activities be school feeding program na no kan wa say na back no so
the mother and lunch box school feeding, mother and infant nutrition.
Okay, it's also screen is why the go so extra activities are through Madam Lisa initiative our diaba. I don't know say we face any challenges. Are you facing any challenges? Are you facing some challenges? This organization, what are some of the challenges you are facing?
Challenges of food banking. Well,
Madam Lisa.
Yes. So I think one of the biggest challenges in both opportunities is the policy environment that which we're operating in, right? So I think that right now, the policy environment sometimes makes it not just easier, but makes it very difficult to donate nutritious surplus food. And I'll give you an example. A lot of times there are not incentives in place, or there's disincentives in place. If you are a producer of food, and let's say you have surplus product, sometimes there could be a tax that is put on that product if you want to donate it to a charity organization or a nonprofit organization. Or there's no incentive to do that. That means that the cost to landfill or dispose of the food is actually less than it might be for the cost to donate it. You couple that with things like liability issues and the like, sometimes it makes it very difficult to donate surplus food. So I think there's a real opportunity, and these are, again, in a lot of cases, no cost policy changes that can be made that will incentivize food producers, retailers, and manufacturers to donate their surplus product instead of throw it away. You can do that through tax incentives, so you get some sort of tax write-off if you donate that food as opposed to disposing of it. You can also do it through ensuring liability protection, which means if you are donating that food in good faith, that you are being released of liability. And then I also think that there's a lot that can be done around food safety. Most governments have very strict guidelines for food safety, but it usually assumes that that product is being sold. We need to really adopt food safety guidelines that are specific to food that is being donated. And what we've seen we have a terrific partnership with the Harvard Food Law and Policy Clinic, which has actually looked at 25 countries worldwide and what specifically they're doing to reduce food loss and waste. And they have found that one of the key ways to kind of move the needle is to ensure tax incentives and also liability protection for food donors.
Then as well, to add up, date labeling is a very important critical area. Date labeling on food, best before date. And as a developing country, it's one of the areas we need to look. First and foremost, what is the impact of food loss on our economy? If you look at the 3.2 million tons of food that Ghana we are wasting, it's costing us 762 billion Ghana cedis annually. Sikankwa essay through Adriani. So you can imagine the laws and policies Lisa was talking about. If we take the effrontery to put some of these things in place.
Yes, one more they don't want to bring it to.
No, it's because of the policies are all about. Policy,
you can't ensure that and yes, smooth is very straight.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. Absia enkomona nche ye di besi but utie de Madam Lisa Kani na say won so aduane no wo bi afekọ. O se countries ni bi wo am policies no aya na very straight. Eti ama intimi and guide sa nyama we na idi bia na yakoto because aduane e bibi sa best before ni ade obi doing say aspire. So kokoto but e bi nso ana nte sa. Eti obetimi de akọ bia food bank wo no o ma be hu ha wo be si be sort no. Mako ayemreka kra tomatoes ayemreka kra and so on and so forth no betumi dia call food banks no man kasa betumi ehun kwan befa so a omo be sort na afi omo keeping it safe ade ama obi atumi adi na aye the conversation they having in and that is all about ni na no nkomo e na yedi mamimisa we dey in our language e be a comedy obi the same pay for instance akoso gba na omo call challenge mu pom face crisis o be si dey apply na mo tumi abo.
Into your programs are one, we can say different. One of your key programs, emergency relief intervention. Into mepe OTA media here, before most of the bigger organizations have drew on now food for all. You were hot at that. Mrea nyamano a program this year. We as a food bank, dispatch immediately. And na afin so no. On the ground we were there always. Na afin so no. We belong to the WFP or more interagency disaster relief way. And WFP so and making resources available for us. Yes, to support. Obisa organizations BT Ghana Association of Banks. Any United Way Ghana, we were on the and mepenkwa voter region for the past COVID ebayen na ye wo baby a
say yenye bi endinti na let me ankaza found. All right, let me take your last message then we go then I come to Madam Lisa too. Your final message.
Enti niaye kan na ni say if you look at food banking, it is a very important part of our food system. Most especially you look at the effects of climate change and on our food systems today and all that. It shows the essentiality that food banking plays in seeing to a world where we are using resources like food very, very importantly. And for a country like Ghana and most sub-Saharan African countries, there is the important need for us to actually push food banking into our social developmental space. And how can we do that? Through some of these policies direction. Ghana was fortunate to be one of the countries that partnered with Global Food Banking Network and then Harvard University to look at the effects of food wastage on our economy and all that. So it is important and it's a shared social responsibility.
How do we get you? How do we access you?
On Google, social media, Food for All Africa, we are available.
Is there any contact?
Yes, and we also have a hotline 024 722 3821.
But again, that's
0244. No, 024 722 3821.
Okay, it's a comedy will be a ultimate reference.
Yeah. And our social media.
Social media is Food for All Africa. Food for. What is your office?
We are located on the Spintex Road towards Klagon, but we have a warehouse at Shiles and then Offensu.
All right. Now, Lisa, your final message to our viewers.
Yeah, so I think I really echo what Elijah said. I think food is too important to go to waste. You know, as we've already discussed, food loss and waste generates 8 to 10% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Yet at the same time, we have more than 2 billion people globally that are food insecure. And so we must be doing everything that we can to make sure that we are conserving this very precious resource. The other thing I just want to say too is that there is a role for everyone in food banking. Around the world, food banks are powered by volunteers. There's 400,000 people went out last year and volunteered at their local food bank. So I think if you're interested in being part of the solution, you absolutely can go volunteer with Food for All Africa. If you are involved in the food system in any way, whether you have a small farm at home, or you're working somewhere along the line, or you're a big producer, there is always space to be part, either in donating product and donating financially. And then I think the other big thing is that we always need people to raise awareness about food loss and waste, raise awareness about the opportunity to address it through food banking.
That's
So.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
What can I say?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you too. I was at the command to see Nana Pay or HB Morning, so with Food for All Africa and AFESO, Global Food Banking Network. Yeah, at the end of the year, to me, Buano, now a comedy will be na money be there. And only the baby and Danny Day 19. Yamway homebody, as Madam Lisa said, no garden kit to a feature, and I would be which me I reach out to Stardo, Namas no the 2 journal, no more so ultimately yard to here, I will be beyond ultimately. Dear Dennis said, be empty. You need apply, who apply, you don't pay any fee, no, free of charge. So, to me, come Guadia, you be on Bear. Thank you for coming, Madam Lisa. Thank you very much. Then you are Ghana nowadays. May check if you ask somebody in this joint.
Sure. Well, we are moving.
You know what they say about our natural that tune in as a son of a boy, maybe I come. Yes, Uncle Poyard, my Dutch now, so the best I at once on your crown.